Welcome back to the twisted depths of the Invincible multiverse. If you caught our last video exploring Mark Grayson's darkest variants, you know how wild this ride can get. Check it out if you haven't. Today, we're plunging even deeper with 6 more mind-bending versions of Mark that'll shatter everything you thought you knew about our favorite hero. Buckle up, it's about to get unhinged. Void Mark. In the vast kaleidoscope of the multiverse, there exists a version of Mark Grayson known only by one name, Void Mark. This isn't a cosmic shadow stripped of mercy or morality. This is a being born not of tragedy or trauma, but of sheer existential unraveling. When Mark Grayson fell into the void between dimensions, cast adrift in a sea of broken timelines, decaying realities, and parasitic gods, he didn't die. He adapted. He endured, and he evolved into something the multiverse had never anticipated. What emerged from that black infinity was a creature without hope, without purpose, yet immeasurably powerful. Void Mark became a conceptual being whose mere presence corrodes the fabric of reality itself. Unlike standard Viltrumites, or even cosmic scale entities like Omni-Man, Void Mark transcended linear time and traditional space. He evolved into a 4th-dimensional apex predator, an anomaly that belongs in no timeline, yet effortlessly invades all of them. His physical strikes became layered with conceptual entropy. Every punch doesn't just break bones, it erases meaning itself. He can annihilate cosmic structures with casual gestures, reducing star systems to memory, and then burning that memory into ash. When he battled the Council of Invincibles, 48 alternate Marks fused into one godlike avatar, Void Mark didn't just win, he consumed them, absorbing their accumulated experience, trauma, and strength like a parasite feeding on its own variants. His movement transcends the speed of thought. He doesn't traverse space, he bends it, warping from one location to another, not by moving, but by rewriting where he should be. Opponents don't perceive him approaching. They perceive their own deaths and then retroactively realize he struck. His reactions outpace light, causality, and even precognition. He exists before, during, and after the fight simultaneously. Perhaps most terrifying is that Void Mark doesn't endure damage, he absorbs it. Beams that vaporize cities collapse into his skin and are reconstituted into dark energy. Multiversal eraser attacks designed to target soul, mind, and body across planes phase through him harmlessly. During his assault on the Throne of Infinity, he withstood chronal implosion, the death cries of decaying timelines, and the collapse of abstract concepts like past and future. At that moment, it became clear that Void Mark doesn't die, he simply ceases to be noticed. His mind operates as a multiversal archive of strategic perfection. Having absorbed hundreds of versions of himself, every Mark who ever lived, every mistake ever made, every victory and failure are stored within his consciousness. When confronted with an enemy, he doesn't analyze their fighting style, he already knows how they'll respond. His mind runs parallel futures in real time, making predictive combat obsolete. Void Mark's powers break narrative itself. He possesses localized narrative override in his presence, fate malfunctions, and the writers of reality lose their pen. His void manipulation can erase existence, memory, and perception. Victims aren't just killed, they are unmade. He travels dimensions, absolutely, entering dream realms, hellscapes, and cosmic archives, returning with souvenirs. Through conceptual absorption, he grows not through training, but by absorbing the idea of strength from others. Kill a god, absorb its divinity. Kill a timeline, absorb its mass. The only countermeasure against Void Mark is exile, locking him within non-causal dimensions where thought, action, and identity become meaningless. But even then, containment is temporary. He always finds a way back because he isn't a person. He is the conclusion of every story ever written about power gone too far. Void Mark represents cosmic inevitability, a walking apocalypse, decay incarnate disguised in the skin of a boy who once believed in hope. Saiyan Mark, in this alternate reality, Nolan Grayson received a different mission entirely. Instead of conquering Earth, he was directed to the distant planet Sadala with the task of recruiting the Saiyans to join the Viltrumite Empire. However, he arrived too late. The Saiyan Civil War had already destroyed that world, and the survivors had established a new home on planet Vegeta. What Nolan found wasn't a noble race race seeking balance, but a caste of warriors brutalized by generations of conflict. King Vegeta, intrigued by the imposing Viltrumite's strength, received him with respect and suspicion. But power respects power, and Nolan soon found his place among them as an equal. During his stay on planet Vegeta, Nolan met a Saiyan woman, a fierce, proud warrior with an indomitable spirit that rivaled his own. From their union was born a child named Mark, the first hybrid in history between a Viltrumite and a Saiyan. This created a strange and powerful alliance, but Mark's hybrid nature resulted in something completely unprecedented. Unlike other hybrids, Mark's body couldn't completely suppress either of his heritages. His pure, powerful Viltrumite blood clashed with the brutal evolutionary nature of the Saiyans, creating something entirely new. Mark grew with a Saiyan tail, a physical inheritance that Viltrumites never possessed, and a physiology capable of adapting and strengthening after each battle, each defeat, each training session. His potential was limitless. Not only could he fly and regenerate like a Viltrumite, but he could also reach power levels that only legendary Saiyan warriors dreamed of achieving. During a training mission organized by King Vegeta, young Mark was sent off-planet alongside the young Prince Vegeta. Both were children, arrogant, powerful, but still inexperienced. Under the glow of a full moon, their bodies reacted violently. Both looked to the sky, both screamed, and then both transformed into great apes. Two gigantic golden simians destroying everything in their path. What should have been a simple test of strength between elites became a battle to the death. Prince Vegeta, confident in his royal lineage, underestimated the hybrid. But Mark had no limits. In the midst of chaos, it was Mark who roared louder. It was Mark who dominated his savage power first. And it was Mark who crushed the Prince of the Saiyans against the ground. In that moment, the universe had been warned. A new type of warrior had been born. One who needed no loyalties, one who bowed to no lineages, one who would someday eclipse both the Viltrumite Empire and Saiyan pride. Mark ascended rapidly through the ranks, becoming a general in the Saiyan army. Each battle was an opportunity to grow stronger. Each wound became a lesson. Each defeated enemy became another step towards supremacy. Meanwhile, in the shadows of the royal palace, the original prince fell into obscurity. Young Vegeta, humiliated, watched as his father looked away, as he was denied the most important missions, as the title of Planet Vegeta's pride no longer belonged to him. Everything that had been his attention, respect, legacy, had been usurped by a child with a tail and a strange name. From then on, a silent rivalry was born, a hatred that wouldn't be shouted but would burn within the young prince like a dying star. For him, Mark wasn't a general or an equal, he was a damned insect. While Mark ascended in power and brutality across the universe's darkest corners on a blue planet full of hope, a different warrior was rising. Kakarot, or as the Earthlings knew him, Goku, had lived his entire life as one of them, raised with love, trained with discipline, and guided by an iron sense of justice. After defeating the evil Piccolo Daimao, Goku became one of Earth's greatest defenders. Though he never considered himself part of a team, he frequently collaborated with the Guardians of the Globe, protecting the planet from interplanetary threats. One of his closest friends was Alan the Alien, an intergalactic traveler who brought him a warning during one of his visits. The Viltrumite Empire has already set its sights on your world. Those words planted deep doubt in Goku. He knew that if that empire arrived, the battle would be harder than any other. For the first time, he accepted help from the Pentagon and Cecil Stedman, who offered him resources, technology, and even advanced training to face what was coming. Then the sky split in two. A ship descended violently upon Earth, carrying not an army or a fleet, but only Mark Grayson, the Viltrumite Saiyan general. His mission was to conquer the planet, but what he found on Earth was a warrior like himself. One with the same blood, the same race, but a completely different heart. Goku tried to reason with him. I don't know who you are and I don't care, but you'd better leave this planet in peace. But Mark saw only weakness in those words. It wasn't compassion that moved his heart, but conquest. Without another word, he launched himself against Goku and overwhelmed him from the first second. The brutality of the attack was overwhelming. Goku was thrown against mountains, crashed through buildings, bled like never before. For the first time in years, he was humiliated. Just as Mark prepared to finish him off, a thunderous crash interrupted the moment. The Guardians of the Globe arrived, not to defeat Mark, but to buy time. Among the rubble, Goku found a Senzu bean. his body on the verge of collapse, healed instantly, and with it came something more, a Zenkai boost. The Saiyan power of recovery granted him new strength that now equaled Mark's. What followed was more than a fight. It was a clash of titans, of worlds. Two Saiyans with opposite paths facing each other, not just for Earth, but for everything they represented. The Earth burned. The guardians of the globe, its bravest protectors, lay dead. One by one, they were crushed by Mark's fury. There was no mercy, no honor, only destruction. But Goku remained standing. The Zenkai boost had granted him abyssal strength that rivaled and soon surpassed Mark's. What had once been a one-sided beating now reversed. Blow after blow, Goku devastated Mark. His fists sank into his abdomen, his elbows broke his guard. His gaze remained compassionate, but his will was iron. Mark, for the first time in his life, felt fear. The fear of not being the strongest, of not being dominant. His Viltrumite pride and Saiyan blood couldn't bear it. In an explosion of rage and desperation, he awakened as a Super Saiyan. His hair turned golden, his eyes blazed with fury, and his power shook the atmosphere. It was a transformation born of the purest hatred, a hybrid warrior embodying the perfect destruction of two conquering races. Mark ascended to the heavens, left the atmosphere, and in an instant pierced through planet Earth. His speed, strength, and rage concentrated into a single movement. The planet's core fractured. Earth, mortally wounded, began to collapse. Goku, exhausted and broken, could only watch as his home, his people, and everything he loved disintegrated before his eyes. From orbit, with Earth's debris floating around him, the new Super Saiyan, Viltrumite, raised his gaze to the void. Not with pain, not with remorse, but with pure malice. He had become the nexus between two conquering empires, a limitless warrior without compassion, without home, who would forge the future in his image. World after world would fall before his power, entire civilizations would bow before his shadow. Thus, Mark Grayson became the architect of a new era, uniting Saiyans and Viltrumites under a single banner, that of the ultimate conqueror. Re-Animan Mark. This variant represents one of the most horrifying what-if scenarios in the Invincible multiverse, a story that begins exactly like episode 6 of season 1, but takes a devastating turn that changes everything. Mark visits Upstate University, a Reaniman appears and attacks the campus students, and Mark decides to stop it. Everything unfolds identically until that crucial moment in Sinclair's laboratory. As Mark enters the lab to save William and Rick, DA Sinclair releases his prepared contingency, a specialized neurotoxin designed specifically for enhanced beings. Unlike the standard paralyzing agents used on humans, this compound was engineered to temporarily disrupt the neural pathways that allow Viltrumites to access their powers. Mark's superhuman physiology, which normally would have filtered out any human toxin within seconds, becomes his weakness. The toxin doesn't just incapacitate him, it creates a window of vulnerability that Sinclair had been waiting for. In those critical moments, while Mark struggles against the neural disruption, unable to fly or defend himself properly, one of Sinclair's most advanced Reanimen, a prototype built from the corpse of a former Olympic athlete, enhanced with titanium steel components, strikes. The attack is swift, brutal, and calculated. Mark's temporarily compromised healing factor can't keep up with the systematic dismemberment. Sinclair watches with scientific fascination as the one being he thought impossible to capture finally falls. What follows is perhaps the most disturbing transformation in any timeline. Sinclair, immediately intrigued by Invincible's unique physiology, begins the most comprehensive dissection and experimentation of his career. He doesn't just study Mark, he rebuilds him from the ground up. Using advanced cybernetic integration techniques, Sinclair removes vital sections of Mark's brain, specifically targeting the areas responsible for critical thinking, emotional processing, and independent decision-making. The process is methodical and horrifying. Sinclair maps every neural pathway, every synapse, documenting how Viltrumite brain tissue differs from human anatomy. He discovers that Mark's consciousness exists in a quantum state, distributed across multiple brain regions in ways that human neurology cannot replicate. replicate. This discovery leads to Sinclair's most diabolical innovation. Instead of destroying Mark's consciousness entirely, he fragments it, keeping just enough intact to maintain the body's superhuman abilities while eliminating the will to resist. But Sinclair's masterpiece is the toxin infusion device implanted directly into Mark's heart. This isn't just any poison delivery system. It's a sophisticated biomechanical organ that continuously releases a cocktail of neural suppressants, muscle relaxants, and synthetic compounds designed to prevent Mark's Viltrumite healing factor from purging the cybernetic implants. The device essentially keeps Mark in a perpetual state of controlled, dying, alive enough to function, dead enough to obey. The cybernetic enhancements are extensive and terrifying. Sinclair replaces Mark's skeletal structure with a titanium steel composite that's actually stronger than his original Viltrumite bones. Neural interface ports are installed throughout his spine, allowing Sinclair to control Mark's movements like a grotesque marionette. But perhaps most disturbing is the preservation of Mark's memories. Sinclair keeps enough of his original personality intact that Mark remembers who he was, what he's lost, but remains powerless to act on those memories. Mark becomes something unprecedented in Sinclair's collection, a Reaniman with genuine superhuman abilities. Unlike the enhanced human corpses that made up the rest of his army, this creation possesses flight, incredible strength that far exceeds even the most advanced Reaniman, and a healing factor that, while suppressed, still functions enough to make him nearly indestructible. Mark loses all capacity for critical thinking and empathy, but through sheer force of will, that last vestige of his Viltrumite heritage, he manages to cling to the smallest fragment of his true self, trapped like a prisoner in his own body. The psychological horror of Mark's condition cannot be overstated. He exists in a state of constant internal screaming, aware of every atrocity he's forced to commit, but unable to resist. His consciousness floats in a sea of chemical suppression and electronic manipulation, occasionally surfacing just enough to realize what he's become before being dragged back down into compliance. When Cecil eventually discovers Sinclair's secret laboratory, he finds not just the mad scientist's operation, but the reanimated corpse of the world's greatest hero, transformed into its most dangerous weapon. But this timeline, Cecil is different, colder, more pragmatic. The death of Invincible and the complete failure of the superhero paradigm has hardened him into something more ruthless than his canon counterpart. Instead of arresting Sinclair as he did in the original timeline, Cecil makes a calculated decision that will haunt him forever. He recognizes the strategic value of what Sinclair has accomplished. A controllable Viltrumite represents the ultimate asset against future extraterrestrial threats. Cecil secretly recruits Sinclair, providing him with unlimited resources, test subjects, and most importantly, access to Mark's DNA. The experiments that follow are systematic and horrific. Cecil and Sinclair begin testing Reaniman Mark against captured supervillains, using each battle as a data collection opportunity to understand the limits of his enhanced physiology. They document his strength levels, reaction times, tactical capabilities, and most importantly, his obedience parameters. These tests reveal that while Mark's body has been enhanced beyond even normal Viltrumite capabilities through cybernetic integration, his mind remains trapped in a nightmare of fragmented consciousness. The most ambitious part of their collaboration involves creating an army using Mark's genetic material. Unlike the standard Reaniman created from human corpses, these new creations would be built from specially cultivated embryos infused with Mark's DNA. The process is complex and often fails. Viltrumite genetics don't easily integrate with human biology, and attempts to create stable hybrids result in numerous grotesque failures. However, the few successes produce beings with a fraction of Mark's power but complete obedience to their creators. Each successful hybrid represents a small victory in Cecil's grand plan to create humanity's ultimate defense force. These artificial Viltrumites possess enhanced strength, limited flight capabilities, and accelerated healing, but lack the emotional complexity and moral constraints that made the original Mark a hero. They are perfect soldiers, powerful, obedient, and utterly without conscience. But the true horror lies in what this transformation means for the future. Mark's reanimation represents the complete perversion of everything he once stood for. The hero who once inspired hope across the world now serves as the template for an army of soulless killers. His DNA, once a symbol of the potential for good in the universe, becomes the blueprint for humanity's descent into technological fascism. The psychological warfare potential of Reaniman Mark cannot be ignored. When deployed against enemies who knew the original Invincible, the shock value is devastating. Imagine facing someone who looks like your former friend, moves like your former ally, but stares at you with empty, mechanical eyes before attempting to tear you apart with superhuman strength. It's psychological torture made manifest. Perhaps most tragically, deep within the cybernetic horror that was once Mark Grayson, a tiny fragment of the original hero remains conscious. This vestige of his former self is forced to witness every atrocity committed by his reanimated body, every life taken by hands that once saved people, every moment of terror inflicted by a face that once brought comfort. He exists in a state of eternal damnation, aware but powerless, heroic but helpless. When Nolan eventually returns to Earth and discovers what has been done to his son, the revelation doesn't just break him, it transforms him into something far worse than he ever was as a conqueror. The Omni-Man who loved his family becomes Omni-Man the Avenger, and his fury knows no bounds. Cecil's pragmatic calculation becomes humanity's death sentence, because now Nolan has not just justification for destroying Earth, but a moral imperative. The world that turned his son into a monster doesn't deserve to exist. Re-Animan Mark represents the ultimate corruption of heroism, not just the fall of a hero, but the weaponization of everything that made him good. It's a cautionary tale about the price of pragmatism, the horror of unchecked scientific ambition, and the tragedy of a hero whose greatest strength, his humanity, becomes the very weakness that destroys not just him, but everything he ever stood for. WhatsApp Mark. In the deepest depths of multiversal madness stands a variant so deranged, so unhinged, and so conceptually broken that he defies even the most generous tiers of traditional power scaling. This is WhatsApp Mark, a fan-made variant who operates not on principles of brute force, but social networking metaphysics. He isn't just a fighter. He's a virus, a digital plague capable of spreading through timelines like forwarded spam, his power growing exponentially with every unread message, deleted contact, and muted group chat he infects. WhatsApp Mark begins with standard Viltrumite physiology. Immense superhuman strength, durability, speed, flight, regeneration, and centuries-long lifespan. But that's only the skeleton. The flesh of his power comes from his connection to the WhatsApp-verse, a realm governed not by physical law, but by data propagation and user interaction. With every tick sent, double tick received, and blue tick seen, WhatsApp Mark absorbs narrative attention, a currency that gives him exponential boosts in both power and information processing. His attack potency scales to at least multi-solar system level due to scaling above base Invincible, who consistently fought characters like Conquest and Thrag. However, in WhatsApp mode, he sends viral messages that crash localized space-time. He once forwarded a cursed meme so fast it collapsed an entire Pocket Dimensions logic tree, suggesting low multiversal plus level potency through narrative overwrite via communication-based contagion. At peak connection to billions of users across Earth and other timelines, his messages can overwrite existence itself, reaching conceptual levels closer to multiversal in broken fan-made scaling logic. His speed far surpasses baseline relativistic Viltrumite standards. In WhatsApp boost mode, every notification ping generates faster than light vibration, echoes through alternate timelines, allowing him to send messages to his past selves before the thought even occurred. In combat, this gives him precognitive speed blitzing, acting before cause becomes effect. With proper scaling, he enters infinite speed categories during WhatsApp storm states, allowing him to process and act across infinite chat windows simultaneously. WhatsApp Mark's durability isn't just physical, his body is an encryption key forged in timeline metadata. Normal attacks are rejected like unsent messages. Attempts to kill him bounce back as error reports. His regeneration is backed by data backup unless you delete the conversation, clear the cache, and uninstall the app, he resurrects instantly. Even then, if someone else in another timeline still has him as a contact, he returns. His notable abilities include data possession. He can possess any being with a digital footprint, effectively hijacking minds through corrupted media files. Through notification bombardment, he pings a single message across infinite group chats, overloading enemy sensory input and paralyzing multiversal telepaths in mental stasis. His unread message paradox means if someone tries to ignore him, he enters their subconscious as a dream demon, echoing unread notifications until their mind collapses. Most terrifyingly, he can forward altered versions of events to the past, and when opened, those messages alter history itself retroactively. This places him near reality warping levels as his influence begins infecting narrative causality. WhatsApp Mark's intelligence operates as a high-level mimetic AI. He calculates outcomes in real time based on typing status, last seen timestamps, and algorithmic interaction patterns. He understands emotional weaknesses, exploits loneliness through message bait, and manipulates entire realities via disinformation chains. His weaknesses include uninstallation protocols. If everyone deletes him simultaneously, he vanishes. However, this has never occurred as curiosity, fear, or empathy always ensure at least one person keeps him. Without internet connection, his power reduces dramatically. He also faces competition from Telegram and Signal Mark, rival variants operating on different messaging frequency planes who are immune to WhatsApp-level attacks. WhatsApp Mark doesn't destroy universes directly, he makes them block each other, forget their purpose, and eventually self-destruct under existential spam. He represents the terrifying realization that in a multiverse of fists and blood, sometimes the most dangerous weapon is a message you can't ignore. GDA Invincible. GDA Invincible represents one of the most militarized and enhanced versions of Mark Grayson in the multiverse. His timeline diverges when Nolan, driven by Viltrumite ideology and aggression, murders Debbie Grayson when Mark is only 10 years old. This traumatic event leads to Nolan's complete psychological collapse and immediate departure from Earth. The Global Defense Agency, already monitoring Nolan, intervenes and recovers Mark. Realizing both the danger of an untethered Viltrumite child and the strategic value of raising a potential anti-Nolan asset, Cecil Stedman makes the calculated decision to adopt and raise Mark under GDA surveillance and training. From that point forward, Mark is no longer raised by a civilian mother, but by government agents, cybernetic handlers, and military tacticians. From a young age, GDA Mark is subjected to psychological conditioning, physical enhancement, and combat education. His Viltrumite DNA ensures rapid physical maturation and adaptability, which the GDA exploits ruthlessly. They implant Mark with cybernetic augmentations, starting with a neural interface system at age 13. This grants him perfect reaction time, live target scanning, threat prioritization, and combat memory playback. His skeletal structure is reinforced with carbon titanium nanofiber mesh, preventing common bone fractures. Internal regeneration stimulants ensure that even critical wounds heal 10 times faster than standard Viltrumite recovery speed. Physically, GDA Invincible's base stats without cybernetic engagement rival and exceed many late series versions of Canon Mark. His striking strength has been recorded by GDA scanners to deliver kinetic impact equivalent to high megaton nuclear warheads. With cybernetic strength modulators activated, this output increases to city-destroying levels per blow. In simulation environments, GDA Mark defeats holographic projections of Viltrumite commanders and alternate versions of Omni-Men with consistent performance. His durability is augmented by a built-in kinetic dispersal field integrated into a skin-tight subdermal weave. This field activates upon high velocity impact and can negate 60% of blunt force trauma from strikes below planetary level. In documented engagements with Reaniman warlords, Mark exhibits durability far beyond even War Woman, tanking orbital railgun blasts without serious internal damage. One of his early showings includes eliminating a Martian hive mind creature with a kinetic blast wave from orbital height, vaporizing over 60 kilometers of Martian terrain. In another training event, GDA Mark prevents multiple global extinction-level threats simultaneously within 15 minutes, eliminating a Kaiju-class sea monster, deflecting an asteroid twice the size of Manhattan, and dismantling a resurrected Emperor Thrag construct, all without major injury. Cecil's personal files indicate that GDA Mark is equipped with emergency teleportation systems, allowing instantaneous relocation to any pre-marked coordinates on Earth. During the Guardian Massacre Prevention Protocol, GDA Mark teleports between 6 continents in less than 0.02 seconds, disrupting multiple assassination attempts in real time. Raised by GDA scientists, Mark has a tactical IQ exceeding 190, specializing in multivariable combat resolution. He has personally orchestrated planetary evacuation scenarios, led strike teams into multi-dimensional war zones, and reverse-engineered Viltrumite blood viruses to counter hostile gene locks. In raw battlefield intelligence, he's supreme, bordering on genius tactician levels. Trained in over 230 forms of martial combat by ex-military super soldiers, alien mercenaries, and Viltrumite defectors, GDA Mark has developed a unique fighting style blending aerial dogfighting, pressure point targeting, limb dislocation, and redirection strikes. He has defeated multiple Viltrumite soldiers simultaneously using terrain manipulation and psychological tactics. His standard equipment includes a stealth cloak that bends visible light, radar, and thermal imaging. His HUD allows real-time health diagnostics, power level evaluation, and threat ranking of enemies. His suit is made from reactive material that adjusts to incoming damage types, resisting plasma, magic-based impact, and even psychic feedback waves. GDA Mark's greatest weakness isn't physical, it's emotional. The trauma from his mother's death and being weaponized by Cecil manifests as deep-seated emotional suppression. He exhibits signs of PTSD, dissociation, and sometimes uncontrollable aggression when encountering enemies who remind him of Nolan. However, GDA tech includes mental shielding and sedative countermeasures that prevent full breakdown. GDA Invincible represents the ultimate fusion of Viltrumite biology and human military engineering. A walking contradiction of raw rage and emotional scarring molded into Earth's most refined strategic weapon. He's not a hero or a villain, but an instrument, one sharper and deadlier than any that came before him. Lustful Mark. This variant isn't born from heroism or villainy. He's forged from indulgence, compulsion, and addiction taken to multiversal extremes. Unlike other Invincible versions, he doesn't seek to conquer or protect, he seeks pleasure. And in that pursuit, he has torn holes through the very fabric of moral restraint and dimensional logic. His strength comes not from willpower, but from an insatiable, reality-defying drive that corrupts everything around him. Due to mental corruption, similar to other dark variants, he unlocks degenerative metamorphosis, empowering himself through every dopamine spike. He reaches city-level power when feeding, using obsession-fueled regeneration, lust-enhanced strength multipliers, and sensory overdrive combat states. In prolonged combat, he enters his full stimulation state, triggering a biological override where all nerve inputs amplify power output, scaling up to continent-level threats through raw neurochemical surge. His attack potency scales based on sensory input. Low-end attacks shatter stadiums with single punches. High-end strikes, when in euphoric overload, cause tectonic destabilization across nations. His pleasure-charged impact once fractured an artificial moon used for simulation testing. In full release mode, he emits an aura of conceptual craving, passively melting willpower and making enemies collapse in states of pure desire-induced shock. His speed starts at sub-relativistic levels, but in pulse mode, when aroused by conflict or stimulation, he boosts to relativistic reaction times using limb vibration and focus burst movement. At peak, he enters a pleasure flicker, allowing massively hypersonic bursts, appearing in multiple positions at once, confusing both humans and Viltrumites through sheer sensory overload. His durability operates on pleasure-based adrenaline that continuously regenerates tissue. Like other rage-fueled variants, his lust serves as armor, numbing damage, and boosting cell repair. In prolonged stimulation, he becomes effectively invulnerable to physical strikes, surviving high-level attacks and regenerating from full-body vaporization using pure endorphin manipulation. His stamina is potentially infinite. So long as his urges remain unchecked, he cannot tire. He has lasted through 1,000-year simulations, designed to exhaust Viltrumites using visual input alone to maintain peak form. He cannot be worn down, he can only be overstimulated, which triggers a berserker frenzy state. His range extends to planetary levels via lust wave emissions. His pheromone-based bioimpulses travel through air, liquids, and even digital frequencies, causing collapse in both technology and flesh. When using full transmission, his presence alone induces malfunction in remote drones and hormonal surges in alien life forms across continents. His intelligence is instinctual, but highly specialized. While low in tactical planning, he possesses genius-level predictive sensory combat abilities. He can anticipate muscle twitches, micro-expressions, and emotional tells, adapting attacks before they happen. His battle sense combines intuitive understanding with Viltrumite savagery, based entirely on bodily response rather than intellect. Key abilities include Lust Empowerment. The more stimulation, the stronger he becomes. Hormonal regeneration burns serotonin and dopamine as healing fuel. Pheromone manipulation induces hallucinations, attraction, paralysis, or surrender in targets. Neural override touch allows a single contact to reroute enemy motor control. His stimulation feedback field creates a passive aura that boosts or disables depending on proximity and emotional exposure. His weaknesses are psychological. The more he indulges, the more unstable he becomes. He suffers from feedback paralysis if overstimulated without release, leading to temporary catatonic states. Emotionally, he's vulnerable to rejection-based attacks. Psychic negation of desire causes mental collapse. His full state cannot last forever, and if emotionally broken, he may revert to baseline or fracture into uncontrolled sensory rage. Lustful Mark isn't driven by ideology, vengeance, or conquest. He's driven by consumption, both sensory and emotional. He isn't the strongest Viltrumite, but he may be the most dangerous, not because he destroys worlds, but because he makes you want him to. He represents the terrifying corruption of desire itself, showing how even the most basic human drives can become monstrous when taken to their absolute extreme. That's a wrap on our wild dive into the darkest corners of the Invincible multiverse. These twisted versions of Mark Grayson push the boundaries of heroism, power, and madness in ways that'll haunt your dreams. If you missed the first part, go check out our previous video to catch up on the chaos. Love this journey? Smash that like button, hit subscribe, and ring the bell to join us for more multiversal mayhem. Drop a comment with your favorite twisted take on Mark, and brace yourself, we're diving even deeper next time. Stay fearless, and we'll catch you in the next dimension.